Morning all. Isn't it a shame that Bobby Fischer never got to play Garry Kasparov, or Karpov for that matter? But what we can do is a little trick which I've applied this morning, just as a fun experiment. The chessgames.com opening explorers of both Fischer and Kasparov. I thought, how far could it go if Fischer was playing white, from what we know about Fischer's opening repertoire, and Kasparov was playing black? What would happen? So I picked the most common moves from both players. So e4 from Fischer. Kasparov would most commonly play the Sicilian defence, and Fischer would play the open Sicilian. So we'd have d6, d4, c takes, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3. Kasparov would most commonly play a6, and Fischer would most commonly play the Fischer-Sicilian attack system with bishop c4. So it's like we can recreate at least the opening battles, which is a bit of a funny thing to do, because of course innovations would mean maybe Fischer changes his whole opening repertoire if he was aware of all the latest theory, etc., and had chess base. So this is just a theoretical exercise from the available data. Obviously they wouldn't necessarily play at all like this against each other. But imagine Fischer playing white. In this position, most commonly he would play bishop c4, Kasparov would play e6, Fischer would put the bishop on b3, and Kasparov in this position would most commonly play b5. Fischer would castle, bishop e7 from Kasparov is available on available data at chessgames.com. And now Fischer in this position has been known to play queen f3, Kasparov in this position has been known to play queen c7, and Fischer in this position has been known to play queen g3. And here, alas, is where our databases end. A game in 1960 between Fischer and Olafsson continued with b4 here. So Olafsson playing black and nabbed, didn't nab the centre pawn, it's too dangerous. He plays g6, a little bit too dangerous. But after c3, now he took, and we get quite a complex Sicilian defence game, which ended in a draw actually in 43 moves. Interestingly, if we go back after this queen g3, which is the last available data I have from the chessgames.com opening explorer, Kasparov has had this position against Nigel Short in the PCA World Championship match of 1993. Now Kasparov playing black against Nigel Short, who adopted of course the Fischer-Sicilian attack, playing a bit like Fischer basically against Kasparov, at least in the opening. Kasparov played knight c6, and let's have a look at this as a feature game example then. So Fischer-Sicilian attack, how does it fare against Kasparov in 1993? Well, Nigel Short playing white took on c6 here, queen takes c6, and now rook e1. And when we look at this game, I think 99% of us won't really have a clue of the dangers that actually rook e1 poses. I had to check with an engine what is the actual threat here, and curiously there's an amazing idea for white here in this position. Let's give black a token move like a5. Actually, white might be punting for this move knight d5, and let me show you why. E takes, queen takes g7, rook f8, and guess what? To play in this position is a powerful move. If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, queen takes f6. This would leave white with a big advantage actually in this particular position. So rook e1's got this kind of venomous idea potentially of knight d5. Kasparov doesn't routinely castle in this position. He plays bishop b7, which takes a lot of the venom out of knight d5 actually. So it's not actually worth playing here in this position, because black can always castle queenside to ruin this combinationary idea. Nigel Short played a3, and we saw rook d8 from Kasparov, f3, now Kasparov castled, inviting, it seems, the dangerous bishop h6. He could actually, it seems, play knight h5 here, but he played knight e8. And now we see king h1, king h8, asking the bishop to leave politely, unpinning that pawn. The bishop doesn't mind swapping itself off for black's dark square bishop, bishop g5. Kasparov doesn't really want to play a weakening move, weakening e6, so he just snaps that off. Queen takes g5. Although it seems as though he might have potentially an issue here, it's not such a big deal, I believe, in this position. Knight f6, rook a d1. Although Nigel now starts piling the pressure on d6 with rook d3, as though he's interested in just doubling on that d6 pawn. Rook f d8, rook e d1. Now we see queen c5, inviting an exchange of queens. Queen e3. And now Kasparov just doesn't want to exchange here, he just plays king g8. And this is the start of a very, very ambitious plan, actually, to put the king here and not only protect d6 but maybe even use the g pawn. It seems a bit crazy, but it's Kasparov. So king g1, king f8. Queen drops back to f2, and now we see bishop a8, knight e2, and now Kasparov plays g6, knight d4, and this is now implying that bishop takes e6 is a threat. This has to be done something about, otherwise there's a nasty fork here. Kasparov plays queen e5, and now this simple move rook e1 again carries a very nasty threat of bishop takes e6. To demonstrate that, let's give black a token move, bishop b7. Bishop takes e6, f takes, f4 is quite crushing here. For example, queen h5, and now not knight takes e6, but going for the queen actually with rook here. The queen's getting trapped. It's like queen g4, rook h4, I believe. Actually, just to make 100% sure here, I should have made a note about that, pardon me. Rook h4, it's trapping the queen. So there's some dangers here, and if knight g4 attacking the queen, but then we've got knight takes e6, king e7, queen b6, just getting the queen out of the way, and the black queen has run out of squares. So this is the danger which provokes Kasparov. The reason I'm showing you this is because it provokes Kasparov to stop f4 here, that the queen h5 isn't good enough, because this rook's threatening to get that queen if it goes to h5. So we see this radical looking move g5, and now there's a totally ingenious plan here from Nigel Short. Although the d6 pawn is a lost cause here, black's even getting his king if necessary to protect d6, Nigel starts focusing on b5, believe it or not. This next move fixes the b5 pawn, which means that a4, there's no b4 to undermine anything. So this pawn's starting to feel fixed. Nimzowitsch has said this phrase, restrain, then blockade, then destroy. So slight restraints here on b5. Now after king g7, bishop c2, which is another ingenious move, because it means that actually the knight can be perched on b3, the rook can go here like this, and the knight can return back. It seems a bit of a rigmarole, but ultimately if the knight ends back on d4 but with a rook on b4, then a4 is a lot more effective. So there's all of a sudden about this b5 pawn. Rook g8, knight b3, king f8, rook d4. So the rook is going for that b4 square. This is quite a dangerous plan. King e7, and Kasparov is interested in trying to threaten things like g4, which looks like a sort of delayed Basman opening now. Why is Kasparov interested in this g5, g4? Shouldn't he have just played the grob from move 1 or something if he wanted to play g5? But of course it's very, very dangerous. He's undermining potentially the centre. The king is definitely under potential danger, but the king on e7 is not without risk, and we see this plan executed again. So this b5 pawn is now probed. Kasparov leaves it as a fixed weakness now. He plays h5. So after a takes, now rook b4, and the pressure's on. Knight d4 is a real nuisance now. Kasparov plays h4, and we see knight d4. It's a real nuisance. If rook b7, then we have knight c6 check. Quite embarrassing. So this is now getting to be really quite annoying for black on the queen side. Kasparov weakens his position further now with g4, although going for the attack, and it seems like why not. But h4 is on. The queen is sitting just in front of the king here. b5 is on. And here short just takes on b5. We see d5, and the question is posed here, well, whose king is safer? Well, Nigel Short just plays queen takes h4 here. Doesn't mind the seemingly scary g takes f3. G takes f3 doesn't seem to do much. Knight takes f3, I think, surely, is just a simple reply here. If g takes f3, knight takes f3, and this is just much better for white. White can even either take queens here. Well, it's just much better for white. So in the game we saw, let's close this. We saw actually, so after queen takes h4, we saw Kasparov play queen h5, and there's a really crushing move which Nigel Short played here. I wonder if you can guess it if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, Nigel plays knight f5 check. And actually, I think I actually saw this game live. It was in the Brain Games World Championship match. I went with my good friend Kostas Karyonis and Alex Eflontis to watch some of these games. I think Kasparov was a bit annoyed by this game, to say the least. In this final position, why is this so destructive? Well, if it's not taken, then queen takes f6. If it is taken, well, let's just check. If taking the knight is the most obvious, take king goes, let's say, to d8, then queen takes is actually a forced mate here. So Kasparov doesn't really want to get mated. This is forcing mate. There's no time for black's attack here, so that's not very pleasant. And if king went to f8, it's still a forced mate. After queen takes f6, the threat is actually rook b8 mating. What does black do? If he plays bishop b7, then again rook takes b7. Apparently queen d8, f6, and this bishop's unleashed on this diagonal. Now if king h8, then we have a nice queen sack. Queen takes g8, and rook e8 mating. That's not very nice. Whoops. And if king h6, well, we just pick up the rook, surely, and it's still a forced mate very shortly as well. Shortly for Nigel Short. So this will be a forced mate here. So it was not the best, but overall, to be fair to Kasparov, he did destroy Nigel Short overall in this match. But this was one of the nicer days for Nigel. And using the reason why this game caught my interest is I was following statistically in the opening the most common moves. If Fischer was playing Kasparov, this has all been played before, up to queen g3. If we pick the most common moves for both Fischer and Kasparov, Fischer playing white, Kasparov playing black, we would end up in this position after queen g3. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.